Hello, my name is Ritchie Knox. You're tuned into Virtuous Teacher. In this episode, I'll be asking the very important question: do your students like you? That is the question. Now, before we jump into this conversation, I'm going to direct your attention to the descriptions area where you can find out ways to support me and my initiatives. Please check it out. Also, if you would like to get your hands on the new Virtuous Teacher t-shirts, hit me up at bhshirts.com, or you can email me at merch@virtuousteacher.com. Now, before I ask some very important questions like, do your students like you? I want to share my own personal story of being liked by my students. It was awesome. So it was the end of the school year, and I was reading through the school yearbook. I got to the very end where the eighth graders are like selecting their favorite things, favorite TV shows. And one of the categories was your favorite male teacher in the school. And I looked and I saw a picture of myself and I could not believe it. I was like, wow, I'm the most liked male teacher amongst all these nutty kids. So, I just kind of felt like I had like a nice glow on me that day, because I'm getting older and, I'm starting to feel like I'm outdated, if you will. But, here are these young, hip students who still can see the cool in me. And I just thought that was pretty awesome. But I'll now pose that question to you. Do your students like you? And I want to talk about why it's important to be liked. And I think that this is very important because some people might, look at the title, and say, you know what, I don't want to be liked by my students. I don't think that that's important. What's important is that I teach my students. And you know what, you might be right, but I'm going to try to push back on that respectfully. And here we go. Students don't listen to people they don't like or can't relate to. Have you ever seen a teacher that's struggling with classroom management? You could make the educated argument that that teacher may not be connecting with their students. And I'll give you an example. The year that I came into my school, I had interviewed with my principal, and she shared with me that the teacher prior to me had been run out of the school. And apparently he was having some troubles with connecting to the students, and he just wasn't happy. And as a result, he left the position. And that is what opened up the door for me, right? And I have to ask you, don't you think if he was liked by the student body, he would have been more comfortable staying in that role? I think the answer is yes. And I'll go even further by saying I've been in the same school, in the same role for the last 12 years. And I attribute most of that to the ease in which my days flow. All right. I don't have a lot of stress when I come home. I mean, think about it. I just got off work today and I'm already doing a podcast episode. A lot of teachers are probably exhausted, sleeping, hitting happy hour, taking drinks. Who knows? But for me, I'm still pretty energetic. You probably wouldn't be able to tell I've had a long day, but that's because my days are relatively easy. And I do think that it's because I can relate and connect with my students in a way that is very authentic. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, but listen, I don't think that students will listen effectively to someone they just cannot relate to or get along with or like or anything of that capacity. And you can probably, use your own personal experiences where you just didn't like a person or like a teacher. Let's go with a person, for example. If you didn't like a person or you just didn't get along with a person, how effective were they in teaching you anything or telling you anything for that matter? Next, I do think being liked makes your job easier. When your students like you, for the most part, I don't think that you can be liked by everyone, but when your students like you, they can relate to you to some degree. I do think that makes your job easier. And I do believe that that is one of the key reasons why I've been able to stay in the exact same role for 12 years in the same school. It's just generally because I get along with just about everybody. I don't have any strong oppositions to anyone. And I do think that's because I'm relatively liked. I don't know if I'm loved or anything like that. But the bigger point is my students, they come in, they know I care about them. They know I'm going to be tough on them. And I think those things they can respect. When you get or gain the respect from your students, I do think you're on the right track, and, great things are in your future when it comes to the field of education. But anyway, I want to give you a little push with regards to how to be liked, because maybe it's happening for you. Maybe it is not. And perhaps you want it to. Perhaps you want to be liked to some capacity. I do think providing strictness and structure is the bedrock of being liked. Okay. Strictness garners respect. All right. When you're strict or structured, it garners respect. If they know they can't run over you, they'll learn to like you. Now, you might be a little surprised by that point. You might think, well, I thought that being liked was giving leeway to students and allowing them more flexibility and, dare I say, run over me. But no, actually, it's the opposite. When you are firm in your principles and you're firm in your structure and your planning and your lessons and your classroom culture, your climate, when you're firm and you don't bend or budge as much, you will find that the respect level increases amongst you and your student body. And once students can respect you, you are definitely on the right track. The year that I won the best male teacher in the school was extremely surprising. And I'll tell you why, because I was so tough on that class. All right. Or I should say that school year's, 8th grade students. I was so tough. I was calling parents. I was doing write-ups. I was pushing back against some of the things they were trying to do as far as like wearing certain peripherals in the class they weren't supposed to. I was setting a structured space for them. And I thought that push and, the way that I commanded respect and the way that I commanded them to be great, I thought that would push them away from titles like best male teacher. But here's what I found out. Structure is what all students secretly desire. When they go into a classroom and the teacher is all over the place, unorganized, you know what? I think they become demotivated. I don't think they are inspired. But when they come into a classroom and the teacher is controlled, he or she knows exactly what they're teaching. They're teaching what they're teaching effectively. And they're holding these students, to high standards. All right, your language must be educational. Your behavior must be respectful to the learning environment. When you're structured as a teacher, I think that you are tapping into an amazing space as it relates to the art of education. All right, I think students desire to be in a classroom where they don't have to worry about anything but learning and output. Okay, they don't have to worry about whether or not you're on time. They don't have to worry about if you remembered the lesson, if you're a good teacher or a bad teacher. All they know is I'm in a class with an adult that knows his or her stuff. And I don't have to worry about their content. I just have to listen and be aware of what the teacher is trying to convey. All right. That's what I mean by structure. All right. You already have everything outlined. You have how many passes you give outlined as far as going to the bathroom. You've already outlined how long they can stay out of the classroom if you give them a bathroom pass. They already know that they take quizzes or they have one homework assignment per week. Everything is outlined, and what I mean by outlined is you understand how your class works, right? You understand every aspect of your class. Do you? That's the question. Do you understand every aspect of your own class and subject matter? And if so, you will come across as structured. That's just how it goes, right? We've all hired someone to do a job, and you can immediately tell whether or not they are proficient in what they're doing. You can tell because they're either fumbling around trying to figure out, hey, did you, I forgot this. No, they're on task. They're moving concisely. They're getting things done. You can actually see what you're paying for being built in front of you. You just know that this person is structured, and the base of structure is knowledge and understanding and discipline even. All right. Anyway, the next thing I would say is in terms of being liked is don't care if you're liked or not. Not looking like you're trying too hard to be liked helps. So I think that I do want to clear up a misconception that could be, starting to form, which is, hey, try to be liked. No. I'm not saying try to be disliked, but I would say be your authentic self. That is so important. As far as I'm concerned, be yourself. Don't try to be the next teacher. Don't try to be a virtuous teacher. Just be yourself and hope that you have done the work to be virtuous without even attempting to. It's kind of like a bird. I don't think a bird consciously flies. I think it's a subconscious process because that's just who a bird is. When you're walking, do you do that consciously or subconsciously? You've been walking for so long, it's second nature. And I think that is where I'm trying to go with this conversation is don't try to be liked. Just be a good person. And I think if you feed that in terms of watching content like this and feeding your spirit positive things, going and taking classes that's relative to your subject matter and just educating yourself and stuff like that, I do think that naturally you'll have a lot of those dispositions without even attempting to try, right? So I do think students can tell when you're trying to be the cool teacher, and I don't think that's a good look. I really don't. Especially since you're the adult in the classroom, looking for the acceptance of a younger student body might not communicate or translate well. But when you're in charge and you're leading with confidence, you'll find that those students want to latch on to that. Like, I like this teacher cares, this teacher is poignant, on point, focused. I want a part of that. I want to be a part of that. It's been several times, I can't count how many times that, during my class, students were rolling their eyes like, oh my gosh, he's going to say this, he's going to do that. He's asking for too much. And then once they move on to the next grade or they move on to a different class, they come back and say, I miss your class. That's because now they can look at it in a more reflective way and say, you know what, he was really on point. When I compare his class and my experience in his class to what I'm experiencing now, I really see that he was trying his best. So it goes without saying, I didn't try to do anything in terms of gaining popularity. I just was being myself. And I fashion myself to be someone that's always striving to be the best I can be. I mean, that's the question I'll ask you. How competitive are you? And I'm not saying in competing with other people, but with competing with yourself. Do you go into your classroom saying, I'm going to outdo myself from yesterday? This is going to be the best version of me. I'm going to try to present my lesson in a way that is so perfect that there's no questions when I ask for questions. I'm going to try to outdo myself when I present this information, that when I grade papers, I'm going to get tons of A pluses or 100s. You want to know why? Because I took my time. I made sure that I refined all the areas of my lesson plan that were not necessarily, the best represented. Sometimes when I'm grading papers, I'll look at the grades and I'll grade myself based on the grades that I'm seeing from my students. If I'm getting a lot of 70s and 60s, I'm like, okay, I didn't do a good job. And I have to take that upon myself to do better the next time. And I think that this year has been a very interesting year. I've had so many well-graded assignments. This is probably one of my best years in a long time, if not ever, where on certain projects, I'm just getting higher averages. And on quizzes, like multiple choice quizzes, I'm getting higher averages. And it feels great because I know it's intentional, right? I am teaching in a way that, is passionate. And I'm doing some different things based on my prior failures. I'm doing cold calling, meaning that student that's quiet and not giving me any headache is no longer safe. I'm asking to make sure that student understands what the expectation is. And that cold calling method is making everyone uneasy in a way that they have to focus. Otherwise, they know they can get cold called and, potentially embarrass themselves. Now, I'm not trying to embarrass students, but you have to pay attention in class because everybody is going to be called. Everyone counts. Everyone matters. And I think that type of stuff translates over. All right. The last point that I can possibly offer you as far as being liked by your students is to tap into your cool. Like, you're a cool person. You know what I'm saying? Tap into that. You haven't always been this teacher that, is very rigid. No, tap into your cool. And I think tapping into your cool is simply being your authentic self. It's being fearless, not being afraid of making mistakes, not being afraid of errors. One of the best ways that I can maybe provide an example of that is just this process of me recording this episode. You'll notice that there are no edits. That means I had to talk perfectly and convey my points as best as I can. But, it's just confidence. I'm not afraid of making mistakes. I'm not afraid of embarrassing myself. I'm not afraid of making a couple hiccups here and there because I'm not perfect. And I think once you realize you're not perfect and, understand that you're liable to make some errors and some misjudgments, you give yourself some grace. And I think when you give yourself some grace and you go into that arena called the classroom with the understanding that you deserve grace, you're a human being, for crying out loud. You find a different space within your psyche where you're able to work from a space of more confidence or from a space of patience and peace. Okay, and once you get to that point, your swagger turns on, and now you just come across as confident and cool. I mean, you ever seen somebody and you don't know if they're trying or not? You just know this person is extremely confident, and the next way that you might describe that person is they're pretty cool. They're cool under pressure. You could tap into that. You have that in you. It just comes with repetition. It comes with reflection. It comes with endowing yourself with knowledge and things that you need to fill your gaps. You have to know your own weaknesses. That's a really big point. You have to know where you fall short, and then you have to do the work to improve in that area. My gosh, that's exactly what you have to do. And once you've done that work, I do believe that your students will like you. All right. Perhaps something that I'll add as a bonus, like yourself. Like yourself. Sometimes you won't be liked, and it could be for reasons that are out of your control. You never know why people form the ideologies or the opinions that they have. But like yourself, man, ladies, like yourself. And if you like yourself, I do feel like that will translate over to the people that matter. All right. I really believe that. But that is all that I wanted to share with you. Don't forget to check out the descriptions area if you would like to work with me one-on-one so that we can, really get you to be my lip. Ouch. Ouch. All right. Talk about mistakes. And I'm not going to edit it out, by the way. I'm not going to edit it out. All right. But anyway, if you want to meet one-on-one, do some kind of consultation where we can work on your pedagogy, your style of teaching in a more personal setting, I'm always here for that. But anyway, thank you. And it's been good. Be safe. And don't bite your lip.